when a Ukrainian underwater drone slipped beneath the surface barriers at Russia's most protected naval base and struck a submarine worth $400 million, Russian commanders faced a problem they had not anticipated. They had installed 3 massive floating barriers across the harbour entrance, specifically to stop Ukrainian drones. Those barriers worked perfectly against everything Ukraine had used before, but the subsea baby drone simply went underneath them. December 15th, 2025. Novorossiysk Naval Base, Russia's primary Black Sea Fleet headquarters after Ukrainian strikes forced them to abandon Sevastopol. Ukrainian security service forces sent an unmanned underwater vehicle through the main harbour entrance, past all the defences, straight to a Project 636.3 submarine. This was not just any submarine. This was one of the platforms Russia uses to launch caliber cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities, particularly Odessa. Satellite imagery from Planet Labs confirmed the explosion near the submarine's stern section, where the propulsion systems and some missile launchers are located. If you want more detailed breakdowns of developments in the war in Ukraine, backed by verified sources, subscribe and turn on notifications. We analyse what actually happened, not what propaganda claims happened. Latvian military expert Captain Maris Bruza analysed this operation and identified something Russian planners completely missed. They prepared their defences for the last war, not this one. Surface drones were blocked. Air attacks were heavily defended. But nobody considered that Ukraine would develop fully submersible drones capable of navigating underwater through a defended military harbour, creating a blind spot in existing maritime defences. Therefore, Russia now has a bigger problem. They started this war with 4 submarines operational in the Black Sea. The Rostov-na-Donu was damaged in Sevastopol in September 2023, then hit again in August 2024, becoming the first submarine lost in combat since World War II. With this latest strike damaging another vessel, Ukraine has neutralised 50% of Russia's submarine-launched cruise missile capability in the Black Sea. And here is what makes that permanent. The Montreux Convention prevents Russia from bringing replacement submarines through the Bosphorus during wartime. Repair facilities in Crimea remain under constant Ukrainian surveillance and under threat of strike. These submarines are not coming back. But this submarine attack is actually just one piece of something much larger that has been happening across Russia for over a year now. Let me show you the scale. Since October 2023, Ukraine has conducted over 100 strikes against Russian oil infrastructure. BBC Russian documented at least 81 attacks on refineries and fuel storage facilities in 2024 alone. Captain Bruza specifically highlighted the December strike on the Slavneft refinery in Yaroslavl. Located more than 700 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, this facility ranks among Russia's 5 largest refineries, processing 15 million tons of crude oil every year. Residents reported approximately 7 explosions overnight. The facility caught fire. Production stopped. So you might be thinking, okay, that's one refinery. Russia is a huge country with lots of oil facilities. How much can this really matter? The fuel shortage data tells you exactly how much it matters. 84% of Russian regions have recorded fuel shortages. In Crimea, the situation got so bad that gas stations limit purchases to 20 or 30 litres per customer when they have fuel at all. By late 2024, roughly half the gas stations in occupied Crimea and Sevastopol stopped selling gasoline entirely. Videos circulating on Russian social media show lines of cars stretching for blocks in cities from Vladivostok to Buryatia, with drivers arriving hours before stations open hoping to get fuel. But it gets worse for Russia. Production statistics show that 17% of Russian refining capacity has been taken offline. That represents roughly 1.1 million barrels per day that Russia can no longer process. Oil refining volumes in 2024 fell to their lowest levels in 12 years. Moscow banned gasoline exports in March 2024. Then, in an almost unbelievable reversal, they resumed fuel imports from Belarus after a year-long pause. September 2025 saw Belarusian gasoline exports to Russia increase 4-fold compared to the previous month. Think about that for a second. Russia, one of the world's largest oil producers, is importing gasoline from Belarus because Ukrainian drones destroyed so much refining capacity that they cannot make enough fuel for their own country. Therefore, Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Syrskyi says these strikes have severely disrupted fuel supplies directly to Russian armed forces. Ukrainian intelligence claims 1/3 of facilities supplying the Russian military have been damaged or rendered inoperable. The destruction of the Feodosia oil depot in Crimea created what sources describe as logistical chaos, forcing Russian forces to establish mobile fuel distribution points that change locations every 10 to 12 hours, specifically to avoid Ukrainian targeting. So the obvious question becomes, how is Ukraine hitting targets 700, 1,000, even 1,500 kilometers inside Russia? President Zelensky announced in October 2024 that Ukraine can now produce 4 million drones annually. The country contracted over 1.5 million drones in just the first 3 quarters of 2024. The UJ-26 Beaver drone provides ranges approaching 1,000 kilometers, carrying 20-kilogram payloads. The newer Luty drone offers 800 kilometers of confirmed operational range. The jet-propelled Peklo achieves actual cruise missile speeds. Production has increased 100-fold since 2022, with over 200 drone companies now operating in Ukraine's defense sector. But the most audacious operations happened in the Caspian Sea, over 1,500 kilometers from Ukrainian territory. In December 2025, Ukrainian forces struck the Filanovsky and Korchagin oil platforms owned by Lukoil, halting production from over 20 wells. These attacks, conducted by Ukrainian Special Operations Forces, demonstrated that even assets that far inside Russia are vulnerable. Simultaneously, working with the Black Spark resistance movement operating inside Russia, Ukrainian forces struck 2 vessels transporting Iranian weapons through the Caspian Sea to the port of Astrakhan. The ships were Compositor Rachmaninoff and Askar Sarija. The United States Treasury had sanctioned both vessels in September 2024 for transporting close-range ballistic missiles from Iranian ports to Russia. Maritime tracking data showed both vessels disappeared from automatic identification systems for more than 18 days after the attack. The partnership with Black Spark, a Russian resistance group that has previously provided intelligence for strikes on refineries and air defense systems inside Russia, indicates something Moscow absolutely cannot admit. Their internal security has been compromised at a level that enables Ukrainian operations deep inside Russian territory. Now here's where the story gets really interesting from a leadership perspective. Admiral Alexander Moiseyev spent nearly 3 decades commanding nuclear ballistic missile submarines. In April 2024, he was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the entire Russian Navy, specifically after previous leadership failures with the Black Sea Fleet. He subsequently received promotion to Admiral of the Fleet, the highest naval rank in Russia. Only 3 other commanders have received this distinction since 1991. This promotion occurred while the Navy he commands has lost over 20 vessels destroyed and another 20 damaged, including the flagship Moskva and multiple submarines. It is remarkably similar to the ground force commanders receiving medals for capturing cities that Ukraine still controls. So what does all of this actually mean? Ukraine is not conducting random strikes hoping something works. They are executing a systematic campaign designed to make Russia's war economically and logistically unsustainable. Submarines launching cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities are being eliminated. Refineries producing military fuel are being destroyed. Ships transporting Iranian weapons are being intercepted. Oil platforms funding the war are being knocked offline. Each operation supports the others in a coordinated strategy that Western observers sometimes fail to appreciate because they are looking at individual attacks rather than the complete picture. The evolution from surface drones to underwater vehicles capable of penetrating defended harbors represents exactly the technological adaptation that has defined Ukrainian innovation throughout this conflict. Captain Bruiser's analysis correctly identifies this as a fundamental shift in how smaller nations can challenge naval powers. A comprehensive drone program costing approximately $50 million has neutralized Russian assets worth billions. Ukraine can now strike virtually anywhere within Russian borders, at a time and place of their choosing, using weapons that grow more sophisticated every month. Military planners worldwide are studying how Ukraine transformed commercial technologies into strategic weapon systems reaching targets over 1,000 kilometers away. The age of precision strike has arrived, and the underwater domain is no longer the sanctuary it once was. Russia prepared defenses for surface threats, while Ukraine was developing something that goes underneath, goes farther, and costs a fraction of what it destroys.